It's time to start cleaning up the back of the van, working on a rough interior build so I can use it a little this fall. I'm hoping to spend some time climbing in the desert, so just got to get everything cleaned up, deal with some rust, deal with some holes, and start installing that bench seat and building a bed back here. Clean slate. Well, dirty slate. So I just went over with a flap disc and knocked down any sharp spots, high welds, little screw holes, etc. Now I'm working on some rust issues. I got a knotted wire wheel and I'm gonna hit these rusty areas and just see how bad we're dealing with. Alright, everything is sanded down and wire wheeled. Now I'm gonna degrease and pressure wash. All soaked up and scrubbed. Now we've got a mostly clean slate. Scrubbed everything down. It's looking much better in here. We do have some rust issues. You can see where the floor is rusted straight through here and here. We've got some other areas with some rust. Now what's interesting is the previous owner sprayed this with truck bed liner, and you can see that underneath that rust is just growing. As you flake this stuff away, there's just more rust underneath. So spraying directly over rust with truck bed liner, not the best move. I'm gonna lightly spray things down with a Rust Kutter and knock off the worst of it. I think long term the best strategy is probably to cut out this floor and just weld in a piece of diamond plate, but I'm looking to get it through the next year before I do that. So just knock off the rust with some Rust Kutter, and I might prime it afterwards to keep it sealed. I'm going to spray the floor down with Rust Kutter. Here's what it looks like before. Rust Kutter is a phosphoric acid rust converter that quickly destroys surface rust and attacks the deeper rust as it dries. Here's what it looked like a few hours later. The manufacturer says that as it converts rust to a paintable surface, it'll dry black or sometimes gray or white. It can destroy paint as well, so don't put it on anything you don't intend to refinish completely. Here's looking at the van 12 hours later. That Rust Kutter is doing its job. I think I'll probably come in this afternoon with a wire brush, scrub it down, and give it another little spritz. Let it sit for a couple days. Where the rust was a little thinner, it's really eaten it away. But in some spots it's still pretty thick. Here we are about 24 hours after application of the Rust Kutter. It's done a really good job of removing that rust. There are a couple of spots that still show through, so I'm going to spritz it lightly and hit it with a wire brush. So there, I've gone over everything with a wire brush. We'll give it another day to work and dry. Meanwhile, here's a look at the undercarriage. You might recall that about a month ago I treated the rear end of the van with Seal and then the front half with Rust Kutter. Then I painted both with Rustoleum truck bed liner. Where I used the Seal already has some rust showing through again, and I'm not super impressed. The front part's looking better. I'll keep checking back and let you know how it turns out over time. So we're done with the Rust Kutter. It's time to rinse and scrub. Get this van all cleaned up. The van's all clean. I'm going to wipe it down with degreaser, and then I'm going to prime with Rusty Metal Primer, and that will prepare us for spraying Bedliner tomorrow. There are a number of holes in the floor of the van, and I'm going to cover those with butyl tape. I took the side door step off to clean up before painting, and I found out why the van smells like mouse poo. Yikes. Alright, I got things all taped off and masked. Next up, I'm going to paint. I'm going to go another round of Rustoleum truck bed coating on the floor in here. After 5 cans, I finished 3 coats of Rustoleum bedliner on the floor. I'm pretty happy with the result, and I think it should keep us in good shape for the preliminary build. Next up for interior projects, I'll be building out a bed and installing a rear passenger bench seat. I'm also looking at installing an absolutely enormous 51-inch straight-through muffler on the 4-inch exhaust so that I can actually hear those new speakers inside and carry on conversation while driving. And of course, there's plenty to do on the engine still. So stay tuned, and thanks for watching.